Justin and Tyler 2023 Mid-Year Movie Awards, and we now move into the second part of our mid-years, which is our awards, our People Awards, basically. Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Director, our worst movie of the year, our best movies of the year, and what we're most looking forward to for the rest of 2023. So we're going to start with the People portion of the awards, where basically at the mid-years, as opposed to at the end of the year where we do a top three and we have 3 honorable mentions for each one, here we're just doing our choice up to this point, as well as a dark horse, a contender that might stick around by the end of the year, might not, who knows? The people that we choose in these ones may not stick around themselves until the end of the year. But up to this point, we've made our selections for Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Director so far in 2023, and we've got a dark horse for each one.
Let's go!
Yeah. So we're going to kick things off with our choice for Best Actor of 2023 so far. And the way we're going to do these People Awards is we'll each give our dark horse selection, and then we'll each give our singular award winner for the mid-year awards. I will kick things off this time with my dark horse for Best Actor of 2023. And my selection is the person with the most credible acting resume of any former professional wrestler, including The Rock, and that is Dave Bautista. He's my dark horse this year. You're talking about Guardians Volume 3 reprising as Drax, and you're talking about Knock at the Cabin, where he plays the incredible Leonard. Like, he's such a huge part of that movie. He's basically the driving force behind that movie, and every time I see him on film, I'm just like, he's a legitimate actor.
Yeah,
like,
he is. No, totally.
He was a very good professional wrestler for a short period of time. And that was always what his pro wrestling career was going to be, because he got into it late. But the fact that he's taken that and transitioned it to Hollywood and has such a credible resume, like, he's not just the big kind of muscle dummy, which he very well could have been, because that's been the role for a lot of pro wrestlers who go into acting. It's like, we need a big guy who's got a lot of muscles. And he's a big guy with a lot of muscles, but he's a credible actor. And with those 2 really good credits, he's my dark horse. He could show up in the top 3 at the end of the year. Who knows? He could be number 1. Dave Bautista right now sitting as my dark horse. I don't know that he's in anything else this year.
Nah, I don't know.
I kind of hope that he is, because, man, one more credit would kind of lock it up.
Yeah, look, he was in mine too.
Yeah.
I considered him strongly for this, and I remember writing in my rough version that I've been keeping track all year, was like, this would be a really good pick. I didn't ultimately pick him, but I totally respect that. I mean, the thing is, John Cena also has a good film/TV career.
Mm-hmm.
The Rock does, but I don't know, man. I'd have to look at the movies and stuff, but I feel like The Rock is not as good.
The Rock is winning the volume war.
Yeah.
Because he's been in so much.
The Rock is obviously a more memorable pro wrestler, but as an actor, I think, especially if Bautista keeps going, I think his resume, I mean, you think it already is better, which maybe it is, but I think it'll crap all over The Rock if he keeps doing this.
I feel like The Rock's is this. The Rock's is peak and valley.
Yeah, because
he's done some really good stuff, and he's done Hercules. Right?
Yeah, but it's has The Rock been in anything the quality of, say, I know that Batista wasn't in this long, but Blade Runner 2049, which I know was a bit part.
Right.
Which, whatever, maybe it's not fair to compare, but Batista, I like this pick a lot, is all I'm trying to say in a very long-winded way.
Attaboy, Dave.
And I'm going to say that, kind of like last year, I have had a hard time with the guys. And I don't know why that is. But we'll go into my dark horse. And this is the purest form of dark horsery. Because this guy can show up at any time. He's you know what I mean?
What?
Nicolas Cage. For Renfield and The Old Way. Now, The Old Way was a fine performance. He's kind of just a good presence, which I said before about him. In Renfield, he was the antagonist, so he wasn't in it as much as he could have been. And I actually think Renfield would have been a vastly better movie had he been in it. If he was like the main character. But it was just a movie about Dracula. Because it's like Nicolas Cage was just straight up like, hey, remember how like my favorite movie to do of all time was Pig and how amazing I was in it? Because he said that that's his favorite performance, which I agree with.
Yeah.
He's like, remember how great I was in that? Well, now it's time to ham it up.
Right.
A couple of years later, it's time to just go absolutely like that version of Nicolas Cage, where it's like, hey, remember how he just hams stuff up? So like, he's a dark horse because literally like Nicolas Cage is like always in the running, right? Because he has so many ways that he could get in. It could be super serious actor Nicolas Cage. It could be like just high octane insane. It could be hamming it up.
Yeah.
Like he has so many ways, and Nicolas Cage is always in the running for me. So that's why Nicolas Cage is my dark horse. Probably my favorite pick of the two with the guys is actually the dark horse one this year, because my number one is like technically better, but I'm like less excited to talk about it.
Okay. My selection for Best Actor so far in 2023 at the 2023 Justin and Tyler Mid-Year Movie Awards is Jonathan Majors.
Consensus.
So, not much more needs to be said really than Kang the Conqueror, but we'll go beyond that to Dame in Creed 3. Like, those two performances are so can't miss. And this is, you're talking to a Marvel fan who was like, boy, I really don't know what this phase is like where are they going with this kind of thing. And then I watched that and I'm like, okay, no, never mind. Kang's a badass. Great. This is gonna go in all kinds of great directions. And I'm super excited and super confident now. And that was all on the back of Jonathan Majors having that performance as Kang, and then as Dame in Creed 3, he's so good. So good. Again, both of those performances can't miss, and I understand that he's got the controversy around him.
Well, this is the problem, because now the whole Kang thing might not be built on it might not be on his back anymore.
Which would be
like they'll recast, like if they might recast him, and then we've lost this.
God, I hope not. Or just
like there's still more info to come out concerning the
is.
Allegations, and there's like some people are like it's gonna prove he's innocent. Which honestly, I hope it does, because like it feels weird talking about him.
It does. It does.
But I'm also not gonna sit here and not give it to him. Like I gave it to James Franco one year too.
Yep.
Even though there was like the allegations, or maybe it was, I don't know if it was just an allegation or not at the time. I gave it to him because it was deserving. But finish your thought.
No, it's just, look, if you just take these performances in a vacuum, I don't know that there's, for me, I don't know that there's a close second.
No, well that's the thing. To me, there wasn't either. Like, and it sucks because I've said to you, I think earlier in the year, that like this, I'm becoming a fan of this guy. Mm-hmm. Because I hadn't really seen him in much, because I never watched, like, Lovecraft County or Country.
Right.
Or I can't remember which one it was. Even though apparently he was really good. So, like, I'm not super familiar with the guy. Plus, he has Magazine Dreams, which I know is a cheater pick, but he has that. So I have no reason to believe that he's not going to be, at the very least, in the top 3 at the end of the year. Because, like, you're right. As Kang, he was awesome. But I actually will say, like, I think his Creed 3 performance was even better. Because as Dame, he played cocky when he was the champ. He played sympathetic when he was, like, beaten down and, you know, like, at the beginning when he was, like, asking for the help and stuff. Yeah. And then he played legitimately menacing in the ring. Yeah. He nailed it. He nailed it all. This guy is an amazing actor.
When you, like, I think Michael B. Jordan is one of the most talented actors in Hollywood.
I also considered him.
But when you can have so much of that movie, when you're standing across from somebody that's got that much talent, and you're going shot for shot with them performance-wise, A, it makes you better, but B, it's like, yo, this guy's like, these are basically on equal playing fields here, and I think that guy's super talented. Holy cow, look at this. And he's got something else that is like, again, could be massive and huge. Undeniable that it was Jonathan.
Yeah, Majors has the mannerisms and the body language, the facial expressions. like he does that all like so perfectly.
Yeah.
That he could just not say anything, but it still radiates this like energy and like what he's trying to get across. Like he's a scary dude. But then like Kang shows, like, well, if he's still in it, when we'll get all the different versions of Kang, like that will only stretch what he does, because all the versions of Kang will be different, right?
Right.
So they'll have to do different things, have different attitudes and whatever, and he'll just prove like it'll basically be like James McAvoy in Split.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm sure this will come up again, because I really can't see him going out of like my 6.
Right.
Like, dude, it would have to be just banger of, and there's a lot of good male performances that I haven't gotten to see yet. So it would have to be just bangers to knock him out of the 6.
Yeah.
Like, it's just kind of a spoiler, but I know it'll be top 3. Like, that would be ridiculous if he's not.
We move on now from Best Actor to Best Actress so far in 2023. Obviously a dark horse pick from each of us, and then our pick for the mid-year so far, and Tyler's going to start.
So my pick is, I think, for a cheater movie, though I could be wrong, but ultimately what matters about this pick is that it is for you.
Okay.
Anna Kendrick in Alice Darling.
Excellent. Oh, I love Anna.
I don't know that we've ever put her in. Like, maybe you did on a year that we didn't do the awards, but I don't know that we've ever actually put her in.
Nice.
I mean, I know this isn't the end of the year, so it doesn't go down in the books unless I decide to do a mid-year analysis,
right.
Which I probably will. I like her too. Not like to the levels that you do, but like I've seen her in Up in the Air, a movie I really liked, and that's what she got nominated for an Oscar. But I don't recall back in the day thinking like, oh my god, like I probably thought it was a really good performance, but I don't think she was quite on my radar to that level. And like I've seen her in a bunch of stuff since, and I always like her. She's a selling point. I'm always like, Anna Kendrick.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And then she had to play someone really conflicted. She had to do the usual stuff that kind of gets recognition, especially for women, which is like crying. Like a woman crying in a movie is probably going to get you some consideration.
Right.
She had to play somebody like really scared, and like her identity is changing because of this like jackass she's dating, and she's finding all this stuff out, but she doesn't want to admit to it, and she's like a really conflicted character, and really interesting, and she did it really well. And I think this was a movie that was based on personal experience. I'm pretty sure she said so.
Okay.
It was like really important to her to tell a story like this. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure or at the very least she mined that territory to get into the role.
Right.
And maybe that's why she chose it. She's a dark horse because I was going to put her number 1, but my number 1 pick is someone I've talked about before, and so to me it's like this is a dark horse because she could be number 1. Like legitimately, Anna Kendrick could ascend to the throne this year. That's how good the performance is, and to me that's like the definition of the dark horse. Like, you know what I mean? Like, she may not be number 1 right now, but there's a very real possibility that she is by the end of the year. It's just, you know, because I thought like this makes a better dark horse pick than number 1 right now.
Makes sense.
But this could be switched at the end of the year. So I hope you're happy with this, because as soon as literally in my notes, the first thing it says is, for Justin.
So my dark horse for Best Actress so far in 2023 goes to Karen Gillan. Now obviously her primary performance is as Nebula in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And what I love about the Nebula character, this point is more of a whole character arc thing, but like she's shown some of the most growth since the first time we saw her to where she is now at the end of Guardians 3. Like that character has shown obviously a ton of character growth since their first appearance. And I thought she was fantastic in Guardians 3. I thought she was one of the highlights of the whole movie. She gets the one, she's the target of the one F-bomb in that movie. But she's great. She's so good as that character. And she does have something else this year that I think came out earlier in the year, and I can't remember the title of it right now. but she's, I think, the primary focus in that as well. I haven't watched it yet, but I plan to. So that's one of those things where, like, if that performance is a blowaway performance, could very easily land her in the top 3. And again, we've been kind of pumping her tires for the last couple of years here, where every time she shows up in something, she's always consistently good. So she's my dark horse right now because, again, there's that other performance where, again, if it's blowaway, she could very easily wind up in the top 3. So Karen Gillan's getting my dark horse spot.
All right, my number 1 pick for the mid-years is Alison Brie in Somebody I Used to Know.
Ooh, okay.
Before I get into her performance, I picked her as number 1 because she has been on my list before. I've become a big fan of hers. Even though she hasn't been number 1. I'm kind of likening her to like a slow wrestling build.
Okay.
Like she's kind of there, and then maybe she wins like the Intercontinental title, and then maybe by the end of the year she ascends to the World Championship. Because I've become a really big fan. Like just beyond finding her ridiculously, unbearably attractive. Like she's one of like the Hollywood girls that I'm like most attracted to.
Right.
But like I'm just digging her. Like I wasn't even super familiar with her, honestly. Like I watched the first season of Community and I remember her sticking out to me then. I was like, oh, I really like this like awkward whatever. She plays this girl who gets her show canceled, and then she like goes to see her mom because what else is she gonna do? And she like finds an ex who she ended up leaving before to pursue her career, and she wants to rekindle it. And basically the whole movie she's like trying to break up a wedding, but you kind of still feel for her,
right?
Because she wants to get back with him. And there's a scene in a car where they're like gonna do it, but then he's like, nah, I can't. And I'm like, how do you say no to that?
Fair enough.
But like, I've just noticed she's got this uncanny ability to be like really awkward, but then also really sexy. Not that she's like a sex pot here, but like the perfect like mixture of the two, which she kind of does here. Like she's like, you know, a career-driven woman that just lost her show, and she's trying to like find purpose again in her life, and then realize like she shouldn't have left this guy that she did to do that, and it's like kind of painful, and I don't know, it's a good movie. Again, like she could be number 1 at the end of the year.
Totally.
So I'm like super impressed. Like I had a bunch of women on this like list. Like I'm super impressed so far with the women this year. So it's going to be really tough at the end of the year.
Making those cuts at the end of the honorable mentions. Yeah, fair enough. My mid-year selection for the best actress of 2023 so far, the more things change, the more they stay the same. You think about this person who really made her career in the 90s, but now proving in 2023 she can still churn out one of the absolute best performances of the year. Julia Louis-Dreyfus in You Hurt My Feelings. That's right, Elaine Bennis has the best performance that I've seen from an actress so far this year. In You Hurt My Feelings, she plays a writer, a struggling writer or not struggling writer, depending on the perspective that you take. And basically she serves as the director's avatar in a lot of ways. The longer the movie goes on, like you can just tell that most of the territory that's being mined here was coming from the director, and sort of her experience sort of coming up obviously in movies. It's a different avenue in the movie itself where she's an author, but just such a subdued, funny performance, and not funny in the same way. Like, she played Elaine Bennis, and Elaine Bennis, like everyone in Seinfeld, was like an objectively terrible person.
Yeah.
They're not bad people. They're just people that have told white lies to each other. And that's the whole concept of the movie, is like how these little white lies can hurt people's feelings and can hurt, you know, the people that you love and things like that. And she just has such a low-key, funny, but exceptionally relatable performance that a lot of the time you can suspend your disbelief and be like, I don't know if I'm watching a movie in certain, like, it's not, some movies you have that kind of disconnect where you're very aware at all times that you're watching a film. And sometimes the way that a movie is made can kind of reel you in and be like, am I just a fly on the wall watching this thing that actually happened? And her performance brings that out, and really, that's at the forefront of her performance. So Julia Louis-Dreyfus, to me, had the best female performance so far this year.
I don't like Seinfeld, but for some reason I like her.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't even seen like a ton of anything she's in. She's in like the MCU now.
Right.
I do want to see that, as I've told you off camera. That was in my list. Probably for her, now that you mention her. And I like her. Like, she's kind of a selling point when I actually know she's in something, even though like she shouldn't be.
Right. It's like you see the name and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Like yeah, she's good. Like I will get back to you on this later on in the year. Because I'm sure we'll be talking about her again, because it's safe to say that whoever wins number one here will probably be on the list at the end of the year. I would wager a guess.
Right.
In some capacity. So we'll probably talk about her again. Maybe she might be on mine by that point. Who knows?
And we close off the people portion of the awards at the mid-years here with the Best Director of 2023 so far. I will kick things off with my dark horse. And my dark horse for Best Director of 2023 so far is my boy Ben Affleck for Air.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, because you know what? He absolutely nails the period in time. Absolutely nails, gets the absolute best performances. And look, this has a really good cast. So the performances are gonna come, I think, one way or the other. But Affleck is just one of those directors that is so performance based.
Yeah.
His movies don't have to look big and pretty, and in fact, by and large, they don't.
No.
They're filmed very competently, but it's all very based on being character driven and performance driven. So once again, has a really good cast insulating it. He is also, of course, in the movie playing Phil Knight, and just all of the aspects that the director specifically brings to a movie like this, I thought was immaculately done in Air. It tells a great story, gets the great performances, looks like it was filmed in the time period that it was filmed in, and it was one of the underrated gems of the year for me, and a lot of that has to do with the way Mr. Affleck put the movie together. So he is my dark horse.
Yeah, Affleck is one of the best actors turned directors. I know he still acts, but like he's one of the best. Even if I don't absolutely love all his movies,
Right.
because I've liked them to some degree. I think I've given them all pretty much an 8 out of 10 or higher. So I do really enjoy his movies, but he has carved such a good career for himself, like directorially.
Yeah.
And then also you made a point about it not looking super flashy. That's like, yeah, he doesn't have to be showy. He just understands fundamentals. He places the camera in the right spot every single time. He doesn't need to drown it in some like flashy trickery or gimmicks to like make it just be like, wow, this is like super well shot. I tend to give, director nods a lot of the time to more flashy type of stuff, or like things with like wide angle shots or stuff you like really notice more. But like I considered him for this. This is a good job, and you did a good job by picking him. So for my dark horse, I'm gonna pick Chad Stahelski for John Wick Chapter 4. This is partly because of you.
Okay.
Because however many years ago, you gave him a nod for Best Director, and I said at the time, I never really considered John Wick in terms of directing. Choreography, of course, which is part of directing, but I never was like, oh, look at him perfectly lining up the shots and making something that really stood out to me visually in terms of like how it looked, not like the fight scenes, because obviously those do, and like. Keanu Reeves doesn't give this amazing performance as John Wick in terms of like how he emotes and stuff. So I never really considered it until this one. Because you also said once that it's like a video game. There's a scene in this that is a top-down shooter.
Yeah.
And I looked at the person that I was seeing the movie with, and jokingly, of course, that it just didn't actually happen, but I go, during that scene specifically, I go, I'm having an orgasm. This is a really, this is the first time I really noticed, especially that scene. Once, a lot of scenes looked really beautiful. Then when that scene hit, I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah.
And the dark horse, because he's a dark horse because, again, he has a chance of being really high up in the list. I just felt that I did have him number one, but actually I felt like my number one pick is better, and this works a little better as a dark horse, just because of the fact it's who would have thunk it? Plus, there's a good story of hey, Justin, remember when you were right that he's a good director, and I didn't? I was just oh yeah, that's interesting, and now it's you were right.
Excellent. And we don't just need an agreement for it to happen.
Right.
It's actually objectively right.
Yeah, this is a great director job he did here.
Which is great because that dovetails right into Chad Stahelski, who's my number one.
We almost had a consensus.
Almost. This is the prettiest of the best looking of the 4 John Wick movies.
Oh, easily.
Easily. And again, I could give it to him just for the top-down shooter segment.
Yeah.
Because I'm watching it with the person I'm watching it with. It kind of messed with them. They weren't a huge fan. They were oh, it kind of makes. They were oh, it kind of makes me a little sick actually. But it's the way he transitions into that scene because it's normal, and then you just see the camera pan just kind of go up, and I'm watching it and I'm like, what's he doing? What a weird way to shoot, and then it just keeps going.
Yeah,
and I'm like, wait a minute, no way. There's no way he's going to do that. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, he absolutely is going to do this. And it's Chad Stahelski was a video game nerd in the 80s. And it was someday, I'm going to direct a movie, and that scene is going to be in it. I guarantee you he's wanted to put that scene in the biggest thing he's ever made for the last 25 years.
Probably.
And then he said, I'm finally going to get to do it with John Wick 4. And again, just the way that he uses the single shot gimmicks and the long shot gimmicks to just these continual action sequences, and he kind of strings you along too, where you think a sequence is coming to the end, and then there's nope, we're going around the corner and it's round 2, let's go. And so you think scenes are ending, but then he pulls you back. I love the way that he made this movie, and you're right in saying that he doesn't get incredible performances because it's not the kind of movie that needs he needs John Wick to be John Wick, and that's really all he needs. And I remember talking about the first John Wick movie being hey, all this movie needed was to get across that John Wick was a bad MFer, and it got across that John Wick is a bad MFer, and at this point he just needs John Wick to be John Wick, and he gets that every single he gets that big time in this movie. So Chad Stahelski's my number one.
Yeah, and
so far.
And the thing, going back to the top-down shooter scene too, is that would have been a perfectly awesome scene without that. He thought enough to be you know what, let's give it a little bit more flair.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it worked completely. Although it's unfortunate that some people feel sick during it. That sucks. I feel.
Yeah, it's
the person I saw it with might have actually been. I can't remember if she was the same or not, but I know she wasn't as impressed by it as me. But I was just oh yeah. All right, so my number one so far is Kyle Edward Ball for Skinamarink.
Ooh, okay.
A little Canadian experimental horror movie. I will probably not get to talk about this movie in any way except for director. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to use this opportunity to talk as much as I can about this movie.
Okay.
Not just the directing. I have a very complicated relationship with this movie because it's, I think, about an hour, 40 minutes, maybe a little less. I don't know. Okay. I wish this movie was 40 minutes shorter. It's about these siblings, I think. It's really weird because it takes place only in the house. You don't really even see the main characters much. You see little bits of them here and there. Okay. And it should have been 40 minutes shorter because I feel the concept and the way it's shot overstays its welcome. But basically you either really appreciate this for how experimental it is, because it's going to be the most unique looking movie I probably see this year.
Okay.
Probably, I would imagine. Because, a lot of it is, literally camera on, say, a wall. And it doesn't move. And it's, grainy. It's, a really grainy movie the entire time. But you might see, a little bit of like the darkness. Like there might be a wall or like a wall and like a door or whatever. You might see a little bit of the darkness. You kind of wonder, is there something coming out of the darkness? And even if there is, which a lot of the time there isn't, you kind of just like, you're watching. It's like, you know those YouTube videos, like the horror YouTube videos where people are like, oh, this footage of this ghost. You're kind of watching this like grainy ass footage, and you see something in the back behind the person. Because like, look, I filmed a ghost, and you're kind of looking because it's like outside, and you're kind of like, I do see something,
right?
But it could just be a smudge.
Yeah, exactly.
Or just something, but it's like still kind of really fucking creepy.
Yes.
That's this movie. Okay. That's what this movie is. Like the biggest jump scare is like a toy making a noise, and the movie gets really weird at the end, and there's not even a lot of dialogue, but there's some creepy lines, and like the final shot of the movie is like looking into the darkness, and there's like a figure there, and you're kind of like, what is that? But it's like eerie. But it's just the movie's too long.
Yeah.
Right? It should have been a lot shorter, and it would have been like honestly one of my favorite movies of the year. Because like I'm really enamored by the directing and just the vision and like how different this is, and like I think you should see it just to like have an opinion. Like maybe you'll hate it, right? But it this guy has a serious chance to be #1 this year because there's going to be nothing like it.
Right.
All right, we got worst movie up in this bitch.
I'll start.
What the fuck? That moved. It's Skinamarink. It actually slid.
Skinamarink 2, Brisk. Folks, the time inevitably comes. It's time to be negative. The worst movie so far of 2023. We each have one. And it's now time to divulge exactly what that movie is. I will rip the Band-Aid off first. My worst movie so far of 2023 is Big George Foreman, The Miraculous Story of the Once and Future Heavyweight Champion of the World. So I'm going to say I haven't seen a lot of bad movies this year. But here's my problem with Big George Foreman, The Miraculous Story of the Once and Future Heavyweight Champion of the World.
And yes, he's going to keep saying this every single time he mentions it. I've already put up with it.
Because that's the title of the movie. You can't help it. But here's my problem.
I'm not going to say it.
Here's my problem. I feel that the bar has been raised in both celebrity biopics, because that's what this is. Yes. About George Foreman, as well as boxing movies in general.
Yes.
With the latter Rocky movies and the Creed movies, and with in terms of celebrity biopics, with something like Straight Outta Compton, or something like Rocket Man, the Elton John one that was actually really, really good.
Yeah.
I feel like Bohemian Rhapsody about Queen. Like, I feel like the bar has been raised for these types of movies, which don't exactly have to be facts first. Right. Like, they're very much like hyperbolized versions of the real story. And that's kind of what this is as well, because it certainly is not married to the facts of what happened in George Foreman's life. Some of them are in there. Some of them are like mentioned, but then like kind of quietly shuffled over to the side. Some of them are just flat out made up.
What's a made up? I'm actually not super like I love boxing and stuff. I'm just not super familiar with his life.
So
just like one that's made up.
A lot of the boxing specific stuff is just like flat out made up. A lot of the stuff about his relationship with Muhammad Ali. When George has retired and isn't boxing anymore, they have this scene where he's at Muhammad Ali's house and he's like, hey, please come back and beat this guy for me because I'm scared of him. I feel that while it may be somewhat realistic towards Foreman's boxing style, I think the boxing choreography in this movie verges on bad.
Yeah, it's not great.
Like, because I am spoiled by the Creed movies and Rocky Balboa.
Even something like Southpaw years ago, or any of these other.
I feel like from a boxing choreography level, and you had a movie like Creed 3, that the in-ring in that movie looks as good or better than anything boxing-wise I've ever seen. But then you have this movie that comes out in the same year, and it's like, man, I realize I'm putting you up into a losing battle comparing you against this. I don't know, the boxing to me just doesn't look very good.
No, there was some really wonky, I noticed that, like, slowdowns and just the way punches were delivered looked like they looked unprofessional.
And Foreman had a pretty unique style.
Yeah, but it's...
Especially when he was older, but it's like, it's a movie, man. Like, you gotta make it look exciting, and I don't think they do that. I don't think there were any real great performances in the movie outside of, I thought the woman who played his mother, Sonia Schoen, I think is how you pronounce her name. I thought she was fantastic. I thought she was really good. And the guy that played Ali, I thought was fairly decent as well. I thought he, at the very least, really leaned into and encompassed the personality of Muhammad Ali. Yeah. Other than that, I wasn't overly impressed by basically any of the performance that I saw in that. I think it was directed fine. To some people, bad has to be offensive. And there's nothing in this movie that's offensive. To other people, bad is the absence of good. And on that perspective, I think there's very little good in this movie. And I left it feeling like, I feel like too much of that movie's trying to win souls for the Lord rather than actually telling the reality of what his story is. And I guess it makes sense. He's a preacher. Yeah. So, cool. If that's what you want your biopic to be, then all right. But to me, that's the worst thing I've seen all year. So, Big George Foreman, the miraculous story of the once and future heavyweight champion of the world, to me is the worst movie so far of 2023.
Okay, so here's the thing. I actually gave this a 6 out of 10. One of the things about me is, like, I've said to you many times that I like superhero movies. I know you like boxing movies too, but, like, I actually have, like, a super bias for boxing movies, so I'm probably going to be a little easier on them.
Okay.
I actually agree with some of your criticisms. I guess, honestly, this could have been a nostalgia made this bad movie good thing to some degree, because, like, not that I have nostalgia for Foreman specifically, but, like, a different time, you know?
Yeah.
So that actually probably could have been considered, but the Power Rangers pick was good for that.
Totally.
One thing was, like, this movie was kind of the people's champ, because, like, at least on Rotten Tomatoes, because I looked it up, and, like, critics didn't like it, but fans were at 96% audience score and a 4.6 out of 5 average rating.
Oh my god.
Which was super cool. Like, interesting.
Wow. Okay.
There was this part, this is kind of real world stuff that you'll probably never hear anybody talk about in terms of, like, YouTube movie discussion. Mm-hmm. But there's this part when he's a preacher, and they're at church, and that woman comes up with her son.
Yeah.
And was like, train him, mm-hmm. right? And then he's watching the news later on, and there's, like, that thing about something bad happening, some crime or whatever. Mm-hmm. And he says to his, I think, wife, like, I should have met him where he was, not where I want him to be.
Yeah.
And you know what?
That's a great line.
It was. No, it's like a really potent line in the middle of a movie that's, like, I thought was fine, but, like, can totally understand why you don't like it. Mm-hmm. And especially since, like, if you want to go to, like, some degree of accuracy, it sounds, like, incredibly lame, because it's like they're making choices that they didn't need to make.
Right.
But I was, like, watching this, like, podcast, and people were, like, they were talking about, I think it was abuse or whatever, and it's like, or something, and it was like, you just gotta find Jesus. You just gotta find Jesus. That'll fix everything. And I'm like, look, I have a deep respect for religion, mm-hmm. but that's not the answer to how do you solve this problem. It isn't like, read the Bible, like George Foreman says in the movie, right? So, like, as I'm listening to that, I'm thinking of this line, and I'm like, that's actually, like, really relevant to today in, like, certain, like, spheres where it's like, just find religion, you'll be okay. It's like, that doesn't solve the problem. And George Foreman acknowledging that in the movie, I thought was, like, a really thought-provoking time in a movie that's not that thought-provoking. But, like, I agree with you. Like, it's obviously not Rocky-level boxing. It's sluggish. There's some weird stuff going on. I thought the guy who played Foreman was good, but not great. I think the rest of the performance were decent. That Lee's guy was like, meh, whatever. I feel like it's kind of like, dude, it's Muhammad Ali. I know you're not on screen a lot, but like, yo.
And Ali's been done so many times.
Yeah, that's an interesting pick. I wasn't aware that you kind of disliked it as much as you do, but then I guess you did say that you didn't see that many bad movies, so I have my doubts well, I guess it might be in your 5, I guess, because we do 5 at the end of the year.
Yeah.
But that sucks you didn't really enjoy it. I did enjoy it. I expected not to because I knew you were a little down on it. I was like, Justin doesn't like it. But that's kind of weird because like we don't usually have this moment in worst movies where I'm like, I kind of liked it. Yeah. Despite all good reason, I actually like kind of like it. Okay, so for my worst movie of 2023 so far comes with a rant. It's a bad story. Mine is Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
All right.
I wasn't going to pick this for the mid-years. I was going to drop this bomb at the end of the year. Because I realized, like, I could be dead. And I will have gone the rest of my life having never talked about this.
Okay.
I rated, this is probably like a 15 or a 1.5 out of 10 movie. Ooh. So there's probably worse, but like, you know, it's probably that. But I resent the premise so much that I gave it a 0.
Wow.
For a movie to get a 0, you have to like, not actually offend me, because I'm not actually offended, but you have to like offend me on some level. Because there's something that has to put you from a 5, which is awful, to a 0.
Right.
Right? And when I was rating movies before, like many years ago, I actually would do like 1, 2, 3, 4, but I don't do that anymore.
In the same way that like a turd is not offensive because it exists, but the smell is.
Yeah. And let me just set the stage here.
All right.
I have given 2 other movies a 0 out of 10.
Okay.
In my life of 3,000 plus movies.
Can I try to guess them?
Yes.
Shudder?
No, but while you're on that, we always kind of joke about how Shudder's like the worst movie ever, and it might be for you. Right. And like when we had a channel, I was totally cool with it being, or one of our ratings being, it's just Shudder, because that movie sucks.
Yeah.
But I've never hated it as much as you.
Okay.
Even though I do hate it.
Right. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Nope.
No. Okay. Oh.
What?
Electrocuting an Elephant.
That's one of them.
Yep.
Which, for those who don't know, I know it was a different time, and you know, they were showing off, like, look at the stuff we can do with video, but electrocuting an elephant was always wrong.
Yes. Objectively wrong.
Like, I don't care. It's not one of these, you're just looking back at old ways. It's like, yeah, maybe they thought it was okay then, but it was always wrong. It was just always horrific.
Yeah.
That movie sucks. An Eye Blink by Yoko Ono, where an eye blinks.
That's right, you told me that before.
It's like probably 30 seconds of your life, but I gave that a 0. I'm like, this is nonsense, right?
Right.
So this joins the rank of those 2 masterpieces.
Wow. That's crazy.
I despise this.
I love it.
I figure, maybe spoiler, the only way this might get toppled is if Bambi comes out.
Right.
I don't know what beats this at the end of the... So I'm going to be saying this exact same stuff at the end of the year, which I hope you forget, because, like, this is all I got. But this movie just... lazy. You don't actually know anything about the characters. It's just like Christopher Robin goes away, and then they all go feral.
Right.
And they eat one of them. And I'm not even sure where the other ones went. They might have said in the movie, but, like... I don't know. There was like 2 of them. And they walk around with these stupid masks on. I know it's an indie movie, but like Winnie the Pooh looks so goofy. There might be like a moment or 2 where like the violence is like okay, but I'm like looking at this guy stand there. I'm just like, this is so lame. Like, what did you do? What did you do to Winnie the Pooh?
Right.
Winnie the Pooh is... Pooh.
Winnie the Pooh.
Well, this is what this is. Winnie the Pooh.
Right.
Like, it's so pure and nice. And there was like that animated Winnie the Pooh movie, like... I don't know, maybe it's been 10 years, actually. It's been a while. Then I gave like a 9 out of 10 because it so captured the essence of Pooh. And I just don't think this needed to be done. If you look at if you've seen the Miscellaneous Awards, you know my rant on this, but I'll say it again. Like, I find this director lazy.
Right.
Oh, look, what if Winnie the Pooh wanted to murder Christopher Robin? What if? Well, it would be shit. That's what if. So I will talk about this again at the end of the year.
Absolutely.
I hate this movie. I think I hate the director. I can't.
I love that you now have something in the movie industry that you hate as much as I hate the Asylum.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Right? Like that's.
I'm waging a war on this guy single-handedly. Like I will be there. He won't release movies even if he only produces them, and I will be there every step of the way. He will never know who I am, so because he's like living rent-free in my head, basically. No, I don't. I'm not actually that offended by it.
Right.
But I play it off for the camera. But I will be there every step of the way in my little small community to shit on whatever he does, unless he makes something that isn't this.
Right.
Because he did make a movie, I'm pretty sure, that wasn't based on like an intellectual property that he doesn't deserve.
Yeah.
Stay the fuck away from Thumper. but anyway, that's it. 0 out of 10. One of the worst movies I've ever seen. I don't know. Have we ever talked about a 0 out of 10 on the movie awards?
Oh, I don't think so.
Well, we have now.
We have now.
Congrats.
All right, time to be positive now. It is, of course, time now for the best movies of 2023 so far. And what we are going to do for this is we each have a top 5 this year, expanding from top 3, which we gave last year. And we each have a pair of honorable mentions. So we're going to obviously go back and forth, do each of our honorable mentions, and then 5, 5, 4, 4, 3, 3, 2, 2, and 1 for our best movies of 2023. It's the main event, essentially, along with what we're anticipating the most for the rest of the year. Let us waste no more time. We will dig right in, and I will get us started with our honorable mentions. My 2 honorable mentions for best movie so far in 2023 are Scream 6 and the Super Mario Brothers movie. And again, I know that there's some divergence of opinion on the Super Mario Brothers movie for folks one person in particular who will be watching this, I'm sure. Look, with that movie in particular, I find it difficult to come to a pathway where you can't find enjoyment with that movie. Like, when I reviewed it, I was like, if you can't find some enjoyment in this might not be the medium for you. Like, I went that far when I reviewed the movie, but to me it was just fun. Like, it gave me what I wanted to get out of that movie, which, because of how much they hyped up in the trailer, basically, in the marketing beforehand, like the battle with the little snow penguins.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm kind of worried because they're not showing me anything else.
Yeah.
So that kind of got me worried. But then as I'm watching the movie, I'm like, no, I'm giving myself to this completely. Like this, I'm just having so much fun with this. And that's what it was. It just wound up being fun straight through for me. So that was obviously really, really enjoyable. And I'm pretty sure I gave it like an 8 out of 10 or something like that. So that for me, like, that will absolutely be sticking around. And Scream 6, look, I mentioned it earlier. I was like, I'm so glad that these latter Scream movies are being made by people that know what it is to make a Scream movie.
Yeah.
It's so self-aware and it's so fun, but at the same time, it's still getting across that, like, sometimes campy, sometimes menacing, that very uniquely Scream flavor.
Yeah.
And I love how it continues to operate basically within its own universe, and the supporting cast that's around that is like Jenna Ortega obviously is so good, but I think everybody that's in this movie, even the characters who are like intentionally kind of a little on the bonkers side, they all contribute to this really, really entertaining complete picture of Scream 6.
My 2 honorable mentions are Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and Unicorn Wars.
Ooh,
That was one of the ones where I was like, I'm going to shine a little bit of light on this one. It's a cheater pick, and it's probably not going to be one of the most known movies of the year. Mm-hmm. It's like an animated war movie with like cutesy animals, but it is not cutesy. It was labeled as a comedy, and I'm like, where? I'm like, I laughed maybe once or twice, but it's like kind of like a horrific war movie with some really hurtful spots and like two really good characters that I gave shout-out to and like the best debut characters, but they didn't win, but they were awesome. The two brothers. Yeah, I really like Unicorn Wars. I recommend it. A great animated movie. Okay. And then Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I'm gonna keep this short because like I know that the MCU isn't as beloved with these last like I guess now 2 phases because I think we're in the next phase, right?
We're in 5, are we not? Or no, 4? 5.
I think we ended anyway. Whatever. I know it's not as loved, but I still love them. I don't care. I feel no shame. I really like it. I really love Paul Rudd as Ant-Man still. Kang is a great villain. I thought he had some real moments to shine in this. Mm-hmm. I know that it's weird to some people, like, Ant-Man beat Kang. It's like, well, I mean, it's not quite the way it went. Like, I mean, obviously they beat him, but they had some help and stuff. But I kind of understood that criticism a little bit because it was a little weird, but that's not all we're going to get out of Kang. And he was kind of a diminished Kang anyway. So, like, I really like that movie. That's one of the best MCU movies since, like, Endgame, I would say. I'm a really big fan. I still love the MCU, even if I acknowledge that there is some weirdness to some of it.
My number 5 best movie of 2023 so far is Air. Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, the story of the Air Jordan sneaker with the Nike shoe company. Look, there are a lot of movies this year that I'm going to like more than Air. There's already 4. So there's going to be a lot of movies this year that I like more than this. But when I need a motivational shot in the arm, this might actually be the movie that I think about. I did not care one lick about Phil Knight or the creation of Nike or the creation of the Air Jordan sneaker. I didn't really care about that. Like, I acknowledge that Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time. I don't care what other people say. I acknowledge that that is the case. And I knew that, obviously know of the Air Jordan logo and everything like that. But it got brought to life with this incredibly charismatic cast, incredibly snappy screenplay. Obviously, like, the greatness that Ben Affleck can bring out from the directorial position, as well as obviously as a performer. Everything about Air was such a pleasant surprise, and again, it might be the movie, one of the movies anyway, that sticks with me the longest from 2023. So Air is going to be my my number 5 so far.
You took all my points.
Aha!
So I'll just co-sign 2 specifically. Mm-hmm. One, I also didn't care about this subject matter at all. So the fact that I gave it, like, I think an 8 out of 10 just, like, speaks volumes. It's, like, maybe the greatest 8 out of 10 ever. Because it literally took something where I was like, I could not care less.
Right.
And then, 8 out of 10. And 2, the snappy dialogue, like you said.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. It's really great dialogue with charming people saying it. So I'm just co-signing. I'm just reiterating what he said. So we'll just move on because, like, I got nothing else to add. I'm listening to you, and I'm like, stop talking.
Like checking off.
I had this point about, like, the obstacle being the subject matter, but then it's like the first thing you're saying. I'm like, ugh. That's the only point I had of any interest. My number 5 is Scream 6.
Ooh.
I really love this movie. It's very meta. I'm going to quote you. That's a feature, not a criticism.
Yep.
I love how angry Ghostface feels in this one. Like, really scary stuff. Like, because leading up to it, they were like, this is a different Ghostface. And they were actually right. It's not scary, but it does have good violent kills and a really good, like, horror aesthetic. Mm-hmm. Which, like, I'm okay with because I don't actually need massive jump scares. They actually don't appeal to me that much, but I like horror imagery.
Right.
It's like, I'll go back to, like, I don't know, It Chapter 1, where I didn't find that movie very scary, but I loved looking at it. And this isn't quite like that exactly in that regard. But like, I still really liked looking at Scream, and obviously the performances, like you said. Yeah, I don't really have much else to add there. I already talked about like the opening scene being really tense, and I really like this. Oh, the plot twist didn't detract from it. The last one, I was kind of like a little unsatisfied with the plot twist, but this one I was like, nah, all right, that's cool. So yeah, Scream 6 is my number 5.
And it's still on a path where like again, the 6th iteration of a horror franchise, it's almost by definition not supposed to be good.
And it might be the best work they've ever done.
Right. And the way that it can continue.
Yeah.
And hopefully will.
I'm really excited.
Because if they're still doing good stuff this deep into it, like, let it ride. Like, see how far you can go before it completely falls off the rails.
It's not like the Halloween trilogy we just got.
Right. Yes. Or friggin' Paranormal Activity that never could hit the highs of the first 2 movies, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
My number 4, best movie of 2023 so far, is A Man Called Otto.
Ooh, you really like that one.
Yeah, and color me probably stupidly shocked, I guess, that Tom Hanks delivered yet another incredible performance and crafted this, again, to go back to use wrestling terminology, crafted this sympathetic heel in Otto, which is basically what he is. He's the heel of his entire neighborhood.
Yeah, he really is.
But you so easily gain sympathy for this character when you take 5 minutes to actually stop and see him when he's not out in public, I guess. And this was probably the best work I've seen from Mark Forster, who was the director, probably since like Stranger Than Fiction.
I like Stranger Than Fiction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And he hasn't done a ton of stuff since Stranger Than Fiction, but I'm like, this is head and shoulders the best thing that I've seen him direct since that. So big shout out to him for that. He was heavily in consideration for my honorable mention for director this year. And look, I didn't think that what this movie adaptation was going to be able to live up to what is an all-time classic book by an all-time classic talent. Like, Frederick Backman is, I think, one of our greatest living authors. And the fact, like, this is probably his best book. And I never thought that the film adaptation of that would live up to how incredible that book is and how incredible that author is. And the movie adaptation was step for step with it. Like, the changes that they made from the book all kind of made sense for what they were trying to accomplish with the movie. None of them felt out of place or anything like that. So it absolutely, I think, lives up to the book. I know some people who abjectly refuse to watch this movie because they love the book so much. They just can't do it.
I feel like I would want to see the movie.
You feel like you'd want to, right? But they're just like, they can't do it. And I'm like, all right, fair enough. But I thought they knocked it out of the park with this. So Man Called Otto is my number 4.
So for this, I'm just going to read my critical review. This is one of those movies that want to make you feel shit, and by golly, it's going to do whatever the hell it takes. There's sometimes a problem as it cycles through the issues du jour and occasionally does so poorly. And it could have ended about 4 times, but kept going. But the thing is, I did feel the shit they wanted. Hank makes his grump authentic and likable despite not being likable for most of the movie, and the way people interact is charming. It's good, but not substantial. But I'm fine with that. I'm fine with a 7 out of 10. I did enjoy this movie. I watched it. I was like, this is good. And now since we've done the awards, like, I'm considering him for Best Actor too. I didn't.
He's such a powerhouse of a performer.
Yeah, so especially if he's in something else that I really like Asteroid City, or if he has a good substantial role in that, then we might be talking about Tom Hanks and Best Actor. But yeah, that's a good pick. At number 4, I start to run into a problem because I feel like they're all 4 jockeying for the number 1 position.
Right.
I may have to rewatch all 4 of these at the end of the year to make a decision because I'm really torn.
Right.
Because I had this one firmly at 4 and then the other 3 jockeying. Mm-hmm. But then we've talked about this movie a bunch and now I'm kind of but yeah, it's Creed 3. And I'm like, I have a like extreme Rocky bias, but Rocky's not isn't in this. But like, it's still the Rocky series.
Yeah.
But you know what? I got to admit, the absence of Rocky, I felt it. Maybe that's why I didn't rate this as high as the other ones. Even though I think this is like a completely great movie. We've talked about it, but Jonathan Majors was like amazing.
Yep.
Michael B. Jordan's always good in this. I considered Michael B. Jordan for director because like he did some really cool stuff with this.
Yeah.
Like, this is maybe one of the best like most visually interesting Rocky movies like in the whole franchise. Even though it's not my favorite, and just a bunch of them I like more.
Mm-hmm.
This is awesome, and it's funny because I had written this like kind of poorly short story years ago about like these two friends who are boxers and they end up having to fight each other, and like when they go into like do the first punch, like the world around them gives out and like all this other stuff starts happening. It's like the destruction of a friendship. There's a scene in this movie where in the ring and everything goes like this. I'm like, hey, you stole my short story.
I love
now I can't write it. Because I have thought about over the last few years, like kind of making it better and writing it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, now it's in Creed 3, basically. But watching it, I'm like, hey, that's what it would look like on screen. So like, I was really happy with that scene, particularly. He's never directed a movie before.
No.
This was like his first one, and he's gonna act it. And I'm like, well, we'll see. And props.
Yep.
Like completely. Like it was a emotional movie. Boxing worked. Wish Rocky was in it. I just felt like there was parts where I was like, if only Rocky was here.
Yeah. And so this is going to lead right into my number 3 because it's Creed 3. So we might as well just keep the conversation going. I did definitely feel like there were some story beats and some parts in the narrative that were like underexplored or something, and that would have been moments in that where if you had Rocky at your disposal, just including him in the scenes, and just give him a couple of Rocky lines, like to add some of that like Rocky wisdom and context and whatever. Those would have been moments where, you know what, if that was in there, then you'd probably have a little bit more substance to some of those moments. We've talked about it before, but I think in terms of the boxing choreography, it's probably the best boxing choreography I've ever seen on film. And the way that this, like, it's a hallmark of the Rocky / Creed franchise that a lot of these movies explore grief and guilt. Like, it's a hallmark of these movies. Grief and guilt. And there's so much exploration of that. But even just within the context of this movie, the exploration of grief and guilt in that relationship between Dame, just exploring it just within the vacuum of that relationship, it takes that to a whole nother level. And look, you just talked about Michael B. Jordan. Like, the guy's got directing chops that obviously we never had a chance to sort of see before, but now that we do get a chance to see that, they're there and he's got them, and I look forward to seeing what he does in the future, specifically as a director. I hope maybe he doesn't necessarily act in everything he directs in the future, but I do want to see him dig more into that and see what he's got available to him as a director. So Creed 3 winds up being my number 3, one of the more enjoyable movie watching experiences that I had this year.
Yeah, there was another scene I just remembered where they're in like the locker room and Creed comes in and he's like walking over and they're talking and like as he's leaving, like you can see it. It's like there's like a divide between them or whatever, and like he's leaving, but then you see Dame, and I don't know if he looks that way, but it's like it really visually shows like the distance that's growing between them because he's like kind of looking over. You can't see him, but like it was a beautifully shot. Like this guy displayed directing ability well beyond what he should have.
Yeah.
Like I know he's in movies, and so he gets to experience movies and directing, and it's not like he's some noob, but. But, like, this is his first movie that he's directed, and it's one of the best, like, he's he's seriously in the running for the end of the year for me in the 6 that we choose. Like, it's wonderful. Like, I'm actually more impressed by him as a director than an actor.
And he's not like somebody like Ben Affleck who had almost a 20-year acting career before he directed his first movie. Like, like Michael B. Jordan hadn't been doing it for that long. But
yeah, it's really great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my number 3 is John Wick Chapter 4. I almost put this number 1 today. Like, to show my integrity. He had guessed that this would be my number 1, and it actually wasn't coming into this day. And then, like, I kind of thought about it, and I was like, maybe it is number 1. Because, like I said, these are all jockeying for position.
Yeah.
Like, these 4 movies, like, once I rewatch them at the end of the year, which I'm going to make an effort to do, it's like, this may change. Plus, other movies might come in that I like, you know.
Totally.
But this was number 1 today for a while, and then I changed it again. Not to make you wrong, because like I almost made you right. You weren't, and then I almost made you right. But then I had to change of heart. I don't have much to say about this. It's the best John Wick movie.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. Which makes it one of the best action movies of all time. And that's it. That's
We're leaving it at that.
I got nothing else. I'm leaving it at that.
All right. Yeah, no, I have to echo that for sure. Like, obviously, we talked about Stahelski as a director, and we've talked about, you know, Keanu as a performer. Yeah, they're just these all 4 of these movies have all been excellent, and to think that in the 4th one we may have seen the best one, certainly the best looking one. Yeah, it absolutely deserves its place on this list.
That's all I got. Not even gonna add anymore.
I got distracted by the bird.
Me too.
Excellent. As long as it was a universal experience.
It was.
My number 2 best movie of 2023 so far is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And this series, like, well, first of all, since it appears that this is probably the end for some of these Guardians, I do want to say it's been an absolute pleasure. All 3 of these movies have presented consistent entertainment across all 3 of them and across the other movies that have featured these characters. So much so that I think pound for pound, the Guardians may have been the most entertaining, for me personally, the most entertaining element of the MCU. Does that make sense?
Their trilogy is the best. Like,
yeah.
Of the movies, like the individual movies, I think that's easily true, if that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah, I guess.
Because, like, you got, like, the Spider-Man, like, trilogy or whatever, which is great.
Yeah.
You have, like, Doctor Strange, well, there's only 2. You have, like, the Captain America movies, like,
They've all been good.
Like,
Iron Man, 2 of them have been great.
Yeah, like, I co-sign this.
Yeah. Thor, 2 of them have been, I guess, have been really good. One of them was in.
Yeah.
But I think all 3 of the Guardians movies have been, like, more or less on the same level. And the Guardians, I believe, also have presented some of the most emotional content in the MCU, and I think that crescendos in Volume 3. I think outside of, like, Endgame and Infinity War, Guardians 3 may provide the most emotional content of the MCU, period.
Yeah.
I think there are little, there's little flaws in these movies, but I kind of want to, I think you've made this point in years past, certainly with the Guardians movies, but with basically anything in the MCU, if the flaws aren't, like, fundamental, I don't care. Like, if they're not crippling flaws, I really don't care. Like, it's at this point, a flaw in a movie like this especially, the flaw would have to be crippling for me to be like, for me to even really mention it, or for me to really take note and to have that flaw endure in how I feel about the movie. It almost has to be crippling to it. And if it ain't gonna be that, I don't really care. Like I like what I like. And what I like is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So that's my number 2.
Well, it helps that there's like a unified vision because it's Gunn doing all three as well, right? So, having done all three, that it's like one guy, like one vision, which helps.
And I did definitely want to mention too, like since, like the, and I hope I'm not going to step on a point that you might wind up making or might make later, the body horror elements that you kind of see in this movie, they're obviously not on like a Sam Raimi level, but they kind of feel kind of in line with that. Like the MCU has been very Sam Raimi-ish over the last little while with like there's certain elements of it in certain movies, and it does kind of lend a unique flavor to these just all three of these movies, and that's sadly going to be missing obviously with Gunn's departure to DC. But so they kind of lost a unique voice in there. Sorry, go ahead.
Alright, so my number 2 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Yay, consensus!
First of all, this movie is gonna, like, my rewatch thing. I don't want to rewatch this. You know why? Because it's too fucking hard to watch. I almost didn't see this movie. Like, there's all these warnings that were like, warning, and a lot of animal cruelty in this. I'm like, I don't want to see that.
Oh no.
And I'm like, but it's a Guardians movie, so I gotta go see it. And I do love it. Like, I legitimately think this is like, again, I rate superhero movies really high, but I think this is a 10 out of 10. I gotta be honest. But it's gonna be really hard to watch. Again, I'm gonna do it, I guess, but it's gonna be really hard to watch. This is the best directed Guardians movie. Like, he's stepped up his game in the directing. It's like really incredible what he's done.
I agree.
This is a spoiler. There was this point that I kind of started to wonder. So, like, when Rocket sees Lila, and she's like, "It's been your story all along." I know that, like, in context of the movie, it's like you've always been in control of your destiny, even though you were an experiment, basically.
Yep.
But then I kind of started thinking, like, has the Guardians trilogy been Rocket's story all along? Because this is how he ends it.
Right.
Right? Like, he technically ends it with, like, the post-credits with Star-Lord and all that stuff. But, like, I think this is actually... I think that line works on multiple levels. Because I think it has been Rocket's story. Because even the second one, even though it's Star-Lord and he meets his dad and stuff, it's like Rocket was kind of the heart of that one, too. There's a specific scene where the animals die. And Rocket, like, looks back after the shooting and he sees them dead. And I'm going to be completely honest, that scene has lived rent-free in my head.
Yeah.
I think about it every day, and I can't. I wanted to leave. Because I can't handle it. It hurt me. It hurt me so bad. And that villain is my most hated villain in the entire MCU. I don't care that Thanos killed half the population. You know what? What, High Evolutionary? Is that what
the High Evolutionary.
I hate him. He's the worst villain. I mean, he was written well because I hate him so much, but he's the worst.
And the performance, the guy that played the High Evolutionary, that's like an unhinged.
Yeah.
And he just goes for it.
Yeah,
like when you get those moments where he's just like from the bottom of his guts, just screaming these lines. It's like, oh man, this is awesome.
He did good, and I gotta be honest, Rocket's a better man than me because I would have killed him.
Right. It's true.
No hesitation. You killed Floor, or you were behind killing Floor. Right. Like, when Rocket goes feral on him after, like, he kills his buddies, that was so satisfying.
Oh, it was.
Like, I was like, yeah, get him. And then, this is kind of an interesting comparison, I think. This whole trilogy has kind of been like Clerks. The first one, super funny.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Guardians 1 is easily the funniest MCU movie. It's a really good comedy. Doesn't have, like, a ton of heart in the sense of, like, it's not really going for that.
Right.
Same with Clerks 1. Clerks 2 had a little more heart. I would say less funny. But still funny.
True.
Just like Guardians 2. There's more heart because it started going into the Rocket backstory and the blue guy. I always forget his name.
Yondu.
Yeah, Yondu. It went into that. They were kind of like the stars, I would say. Well, I mean, and then Star-Lord with Ego and, his dad.
Yep.
More emotional. This one, Clerks 3, way more emotional. Still funny. There's still some good gags, but you know what? When I think of this movie in the years to come, it will not be the humor.
No.
Like, when I'm talking about these movies, like, and I'm talking about Guardians, I will quote these funny parts of, like, Rocket being like, great, now we're all standing around like a bunch of assholes. Like, I'll go with the funny parts, right? Or even in, like, other movies, like when, now I'm just gonna talk about funny rocket things, but, like, when he's talking to Winter Soldier, he's like, how much for the arm?
Right.
It's not for sale. I'm gonna get that arm. Like, that's the stuff I'll talk about. I know that wasn't in one of the Guardians movies, but, like, that's the stuff I'll talk about with those movies. But, like, Guardians 3, I will talk about the emotion.
Yeah.
Because it's so heartbreaking. It's the most heart-wrenching MCU movie ever. It's too hard to watch, but I'm gonna have to try to do it again. Like, but it's an awesome movie.
It is.
It is amazing
It's
from front to back. I have no problems with it whatsoever. Not even small ones that you like hinted at. I got no problems with this except for the fact that it breaks my heart. I had to go home to the buddy right after. Like, come here, heal this, mend.
Here it comes, ladies and gentlemen, my number one best movie of 2023 so far, John Wick Chapter 4.
All right, I forgot you didn't talk about John Wick.
Yeah, it's
I was wrong.
Stahelski in directing,
Yeah,
and
no, I didn't even like factor in that you didn't already talk about it.
It's the Terrifier 2
Yeah,
syndrome,
right?
Like, it
That's
didn't
what it
clue into me that you hadn't talked about Terrifier back in January. So look, everything you need if you already like these movies is present in John Wick 4. Everything you need if you like action movies in general, I think, is present in John Wick 4. And I'm actually going to, because I think you said this, I don't know if you said it today, but you said it at some point.
Yay! Unless you disagree, then no.
No, I don't.
I didn't say
don't.
it.
You made a cogent. It might have even been when you were talking about another John Wick movie. You made a point at some point that, like, everybody fights a little differently.
Oh, okay.
And this movie encapsulates that as much as any of the other ones.
Yeah.
Because you have very different fighting styles of the kind of main baddies that Wick winds up facing in this movie, and they're all slightly different, and he has to kind of face each of these people slightly differently. He, again, to use a line from earlier, he meets them where they are. It's not just like, I'm gonna fight like John Wick versus everybody. He shows like different styles to match up, and sometimes it's very subtle.
Yeah.
But it's like different styles to kind of match up with the different folks that he's opposing. Obviously, it's the prettiest of the John Wick movies. It's the best looking. I think the action choreography is as good here as it's ever been, if not better. I love the little conventions and the little kind of tricks that Stahelski uses in the way that he presents the movie. Obviously, the top-down shooter scene, 80s video game nerd all over it, and I gotta respect it. Even if I was like reacted like my friend and been like, oh man, I'm not sure, I don't really like this visual. It's like, I gotta respect it.
Yeah.
I gotta respect the fact that I know you've wanted to put that in a movie probably for the last 25 years, and you decided, God damn it, I'm gonna do it right now. I don't know that we'll ever see anything else from this universe. I hope that we do.
They're already. I think they're already.
Have they already?
Well, I don't know if they've confirmed it, but I'm
Okay.
pretty sure they're like trying to get it going.
Trying to figure out.
Which I don't need, but like I'll still watch it.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Okay, well then, look, the next one that comes down the pipe, I'm all for it. And I can't find anything about this movie to criticize. So there's even the point, and I've seen some people use it as a criticism against these movies in general, that they're like, well, people are like standing point blank at him and shooting him, and he puts his coat up and stops them.
Didn't he have like the super coat?
And it's like,
isn't that like wasn't that made in one of the other ones?
yes, but I think people are just like, it never fails one time or whatever. I'm like, that's a feature.
Yeah.
That's a feature of these. Yes, that is an insane thing that exists in this universe, and it's turned up to 11 in John Wick 4. And it's a criticism. It's a feature rather. I can't criticize this really cool visual looking feature in this movie that I really like. Like I guess I don't have the stomach for that as a critic. But John Wick 4, my number one.
You know what's been weird in this top 5 is like you've put Creed higher than I did. You've put John Wick higher than I did. These movies are all 10s for me. These last 4 movies, basically, are all 10s, okay?
All right.
So, because it makes me feel weird, so I was like, does Justin really like John Wick more than me? I'm like, oh wait, I rated it a 10. I just have to put them in order. But, like, besides that, I didn't really want to leave this without commenting on your best movie because that feels weird. So I'll just like, let's just run down some scenes. The scene where he like walks into like the church or whatever, the priest or whatever, was just like, boom.
Yeah.
Awesome. The stair scene. Because you can see he works his way up and then gets
all the way down.
And he has to go do it again. Like in some movies that wouldn't have worked. They're like, seriously? But you're like, Here we go again. And that's all I got.
And I think because you've given yourself to it so much by that point,
Yeah.
you're just like, no, I'm gonna go with it's John Wick. I'm gonna go with this.
Oh, I got one more point.
Yep.
One more point. So years ago, your boy over here said that like Kingsman might be his favorite action movie of all time. Like it's one of. I mean, it still is. I think John Wick Chapter 4 is better. And I love the first Kingsman. Okay,
Absolutely.
I adore that movie, and maybe it's recency bias, but like I came out of that being like, damn, like because John Wick. Here's the thing about John Wick versus Kingsman. Kingsman and John Wick, like the first one. I think Kingsman, the first one, is better than John Wick, even though I love the first John Wick. Amazing. But then, like, Kingsman went like this. Like, where Kingsman has fallen, like, John Wick is, like, ascended to the throne of, like, best current action, pure action franchise.
Yeah.
And you never would have, like, if you would have said that back in the day, I would have been like, well, I don't know, man, the first Kingsman is pretty friggin' great. And it is. And John Wick was pretty friggin' great, but now it's like, well, John Wick's better. Like, John Wick Chapter 4 is better than Kingsman. That's hard to say, but it's true. But it doesn't. It doesn't matter because like I can just love all of them.
I don't have to choose.
I never have to choose. So now we're moving on to my number one.
We sure are.
Can you guess it? You got 5 seconds.
I don't know.
Dun, 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 dun.
Woohoo!
Super Mario Brothers.
All right.
Again, this could change at the end of the year, but
Totally.
and like it came back on the board to number 1 because like John Wick took it over, and then the fans annoyed me, and I realized like, damn, I took that personally. I'm like, no, I did, but this needs to be number 1. I love this movie. The soundtrack is awesome, like I've talked about. There was a lot of snobbery around this movie though when it came out. Like, oh, art has to be this way. This doesn't have much of a story.
Right.
And I'm like, well, first of all, it kind of does. It's just like a kind of a good versus evil. And I actually thought there was like decent characterization. I don't know, like seeing Mario, like the flashbacks and stuff between Mario and Luigi. I thought that was like well done enough that like I was invested in it. Beautifully animated. The action was fun. The comedy really worked. There was that scene with the blue turtle shell where I literally gasped. When he comes there, he's like, blue turtle shell. And I'm surprised no one heard me because I'm literally like, so like, I get it. I can extend like a bit of an olive branch to people where it's like, I get it that, like, if you're not into Mario, it means a lot less to you. And even if you are into Mario, it doesn't mean you have to love it. And I'm not even necessarily saying that, like, a movie should get away with it, I guess. Like, not, like, explaining certain things and being like, well, you gotta play the games. But at the same time, I'm like, this was meant for the fans.
Right. And I think what maybe people aren't kind of taking into consideration, because I think they're gatekeeping it in a sense, that they're like, Mario was my game. Guess what? Like, Mario's for the kids now.
Yeah.
Like, all of the modern Mario games, like Mario Maker and
Odyssey?
Odyssey. Like, all the new ones, like, they're for the, the players that grew up with Mario, but, like, those games are for the kids as well. And that's the direction that it's going. So if you're like, for people that aren't down with the fact that it was a simplistic story, it's like the first Mario game, you just ran through 8 worlds to save a princess from a castle, and you did it 2 more times. Like, I don't get it. Like,
yeah, and the story's more interesting than that in this. Like,
yeah,
Bowser wants to get the star so he can become invincible and murder everything. And he loves Peach.
And he loves
Peach. The song, the classic, that's got to win the Oscar, right? It has to.
I think it has to. There's going to be enough groundswell that's at least going to get nominated.
Like, I guess, like, when it comes down to it with the criticisms, it's just like, I can kind of see the criticisms, but also I just disagree. I guess it's one of those things where it's like, okay, like, it comes down to like, okay, maybe you need this. I just disagree. I just really like it. I was smiling the entire time. I laughed. I thought the jokes actually worked. I followed the like box office like religiously. Yeah, I still check on it to see how.
Do you?
Yeah, I'm so happy that it made a ton of money.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird because they're like a major corporation, so I shouldn't be that happy. But there's just something like Nintendo is like one of the only companies in the world where it's like I'm always rooting for them, right? Because they were so important to gaming and me and lots of other people and stuff. So I'm just so happy that the Mario movie was great. And maybe on a rewatch, maybe like that excitement kind of leaves, and maybe I don't like it as much. I don't know. That could happen.
Yeah.
But like, I love it. I don't care. This has actually been like an outstanding year for movies for me.
Yeah.
Like I've been so like this has been the best year of movies since we started doing this. Like in terms of like at the top, I've been like, wow, I'm like eating so well this year.
Right, exactly. We're fat and happy this year.
Yeah, I'm super impressed, and there's like so many good movies to go that like my top 10 is gonna be like 9.5
just
to 9.
Certified
like,
bangers.
It's just gonna be bangers. I mean, it always is anyway, because the top 10 are always great movies. But like, this is gonna be like a Scream 6. I rated a 9, but still, like, awesome year. Capped off on my list by Super Mario Brothers. Which, to be fair, there's also probably a little bit of like I wanted to win, because like I said it, like I said movie of the year. But I was scared. Like, I didn't actually think. But then when the first trailer came out, I'm like, oh, this might actually be the best movie of the year. This trailer is really good.
Yeah.
They're doing it right.
So there you have it, folks. John Wick Chapter 4 and the Super Mario Brothers movie, our #1 best movies of 2023 so far. But Tyler made an excellent point there, and one of the last things that he just said, there's still quite a bit to go this year, and this is how we're going to cap this off with our top 5 most anticipated movies for the rest of 2023. Like, we got more than half the year left. We still got the whole month of June, and then the entire rest of 2023, right up to December 31st. So, look, there's always those stuff that comes out right around Christmas.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, like, you're looking right at the end of the year. So, we're really looking forward to the rest of this year. And here come the 5 movies that we're looking forward to the most.
And I mean, we literally have Spider-Verse already out.
Right. Spider-Verse is playing at the theater, and that's about, like, a third of a kilometer that way.
Yeah, and people are saying it's like the best superhero movie.
Right.
So it's like...
My #5 most anticipated movie for the rest of 2023 is Killers of the Flower Moon. So this is the next Martin Scorsese, Leonardo DiCaprio joint. And this is based on a book by David Gran, who did The Lost City of Z, which was a movie a couple of years back. And it's the story of the Osage Native Americans and basically the foundation of the FBI. So the Osage Native Americans find oil, a bunch of them are murdered, and it's the story basically of the formation of the FBI through this investigation. And in the capable hands of Mr. Scorsese and with somebody like Leo at the front, you can't not be anticipating this movie. Like, if you like movies, you have to be excited about this movie. Like, even if you're not like pumped about the subject matter
or the length, because I think it's like really long.
I'm sure it's probably going to be 3 hours.
So was The Irishman, right? Like, that was a long movie too.
Exactly. But look, you see Scorsese, you see Leo. you basically know that you're going to get a bunch of gold in there. So Killers of the Flower Moon's my number 5.
I thought for years that I wasn't much of a Scorsese fan because I'm not as high on him as like some people, right? Because he's royalty, deservedly so,
Totally.
in film. But then like I look at my ratings and there are a lot of movies of his that I really, really like. Like I even really like The Irishman after weirdly the first hour. As we've gotten closer to its release, I don't know when it actually comes out, but like before when it was announced, I was like, well, you know, I'm sure it'll be good. But now I am really excited for it. I mean, this is going to be one of those movies I think that will probably show up a bunch of times in our awards. Like I imagine it'll be on like our top movies list somewhere. I imagine there'll be like a performance in there worth at least considering. I'm sure Scorsese's directing will probably be worth considering. Like I feel like this is a front runner to win a lot at the end of the year for us, but maybe not. Maybe it won't. Who knows?
Is anybody going to be surprised if this wins Best Picture?
Yeah, exactly. Like
no. Like, I don't think anybody's going to be shocked.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a really good pick. All right, so my number 5 most anticipated for the rest of the year is The Killer. A neo-noir thriller from Mr. David Fincher.
Yes.
That's it. and that's the stuff I want to see him doing.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, I liked Mank. I didn't love Mank.
Yeah, neither did I.
But I love a lot. I mean, I love a lot of his stuff. I love him. I love the idea of a neo-noir thriller. That's like all the stuff I like. I think it's going to be great. Yeah. So, that's it.
Yeah, and basically you throw Fincher's name on something and you see, oh, neo-noir thriller. Sign me up.
I literally know nothing else about it. No. I don't know who's in it. I know that the info's out there. I don't care.
Yeah.
I was like looking through the movies, like, oh, what's The Killer? I'm like, oh, directed by David Fincher. I'm like, what is it? Neo-noir thriller. I'm like, done. It's on the list.
Sign me up. Don't just tell me when the release date is.
Yeah.
My number 4 most anticipated movie for the rest of 2023 is Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. Obviously, the conclusion of the Mission Impossible franchise, because eventually Tom Cruise is just going to die in a movie.
Well, I think he dies in the second part.
Right.
I think he's already dead. They've already filmed it, and he's actually been dead.
They've somehow managed to get TMZ to suppress that information. Yeah. That should be about all you need to say. Like, how long have we been watching Mission Impossible movies, and how long have we been watching Tom Cruise movies? And I can't wait. Because the last couple of Mission Impossible movies have been great.
They really have.
Like, not good, they've been great movies. So, I want to see them finish as strong as humanly possible, that they just kind of have this little valley that they kind of hit in the middle there, but then just, like, it's as good now as it's ever been. And I think both parts of Dead Reckoning are probably going to, hopefully, live up to that, and that's why it's my number 4.
I know it's going to be, like, more high-octane action, because that's what they are, but, like, I do love the first one, like, immensely.
Yeah.
It was, like, one of my favorite movies as a kid, and I still really, really love it. I kind of, and that was just, like, a spy drama / thriller, so I would like to see more of that, but I know that's going to be an amazing action movie. I'm completely fine with that.
Totally.
My number 4 is The Marvels. This is unpopular. I don't know.
Is that the subtitle of the movie?
It should be.
This is unpopular.
Like, here's the thing. I thought the trailer looked really good. I like the Beastie Boys song.
Yep.
You know, I thought it looked like a fun thrill ride. I like some others, have felt that, like, Captain Marvel as a character has kind of fallen into that, like, male bashing thing, especially in her movie, a little bit, right? And, like, I understand the context of the current MCU and how people feel. I know all the conversation around it, but I gotta be honest, I've watched this trailer a bunch of times. Like, I have no doubt it'll be good. Like, I liked Miss Marvel, too. I thought that was a good show. I didn't love it, but it also wasn't for me, right? Like, because it's not really my culture, right? But I still liked it. Mm-hmm. And there is something, like, political I want to, like, maybe get your thoughts on or whatever, just talk about. Like, there was these people being, like websites being like, yeah, the trailer takes a dig at the haters of the first one. And I'm like, well, okay, how? And then I look at it, and when the first one was coming out and people were saying that Brie Larson should smile more, and I guess she shot back by posting pictures of her co-stars not smiling or something.
Okay.
And then, like, the Beastie Boys song, like, the first line you hear from it is, "Don't you tell me to smile." And they were like, yeah, taking a dig at the haters. And if that is, and this movie doesn't do well, You have no one to blame but yourself, Marvel. Because if you've really decided to be that petty, then if it fails, what do you think was going to happen? You're taking shots at people in your trailers. If that's true, that could be someone just like reaching.
Right.
Like I never noticed it. I never put that together. I was just like, this is a fun trailer with a great Beastie Boys tune.
We'll be right back because I'm going to watch this trailer and then I'm going to give my thoughts on that. We're back. I kind of think that's dumb. I think that's wildly grasping at straws.
I think if you notice that when watching the trailer, you're too invested either way.
Yeah.
On either side. Like, because I watch it just like, I want to see the trailer. I want to watch a superhero movie. And I did not for 1 second think that it was a dig.
No.
At anybody. And I don't want it to be. I just want them to make movies with cool chicks in it. Not just cool chicks, but you know what I mean? I didn't want these movies this movie in particular to come out and it's just like, yeah, it's a good movie.
Yep.
But you know what's gonna come out and everyone's gonna be mad. I'm excited for the Marvels. I don't care. I don't care who knows it.
Don't you tell me to smile. My number 3 most anticipated movie for the rest of 2023 is Oppenheimer. Christopher Nolan movie filmed in a really interesting way with a banger cast including Cillian Murphy. Sign me up. I'm good to go. That's all I need. It's about interesting subject matter too, and that's a nice cherry on top. But I look at that cast, I'm like, Cillian Murphy, Robert Downey Jr., Matt Damon, like you just keep going down the list and I'm like, okay, cool. Sign me up. I'm ready to roll here. And that's really all that I needed.
I really hope this is a return to form for him because I haven't really loved like the last like 3 movies.
We didn't neither one of us adored Dunkirk.
No. I didn't love Interstellar and I did like what was the last one? Tenet.
Tenet.
I did like that one a little more than the last 2, but I still didn't love it, which sucks because like I used to love Nolan. I've said this every time, and I'll say it at the end of the year. I'm sure that like I used to call him maybe the most consistent director working.
Yep.
Even though he wasn't my favorite, but he was just like bang, 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 and then all of a sudden, for me, it just started like, whoa, what's going on? Why are we down here now? I mean, he's still kind of consistent, but not in like the positive way for me. So I'm hoping that this is it, and this will be another one like your first pick. That like you won't be surprised if like Murphy's in Best Actor because I think he's like the lead person.
I believe Cillian Murphy
you won't be
is,
surprised if like Nolan's in Best Director. Like it's another one of these like picks that.
Or get like a Matt Damon or an RDJ as supporting actor or something.
But even just like hourless.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking about just hours. Like I won't be surprised if 2 of your movies show up like extensively in like the awards for us.
100%.
So my number 3 is gonna get all the awards too. It's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem.
This was one of my last cuts, and it was so difficult.
It has the like animation style that like Spider-Verse has.
Yeah,
I'm totally down for that. I really love the Ninja Turtles, and I don't especially care about the race swap for April.
Yeah, I don't.
Like here's the thing. I get it. I actually am sympathetic. Again, like I didn't plan this to be like political thing and then political thing.
Right.
But like I get it. I get like swapping any race. I don't care if it's white to black, black to white, white to Asian. Like I don't care. I find it weird most of the time too.
Right.
Cause I feel like it's like why open that can of worms, right? But that's like on a societal level, or like social commentary. Right. Personally, I didn't really care. Like I saw the trailer. And I was like, oh man, and I watched the trailer a couple times because I actually found it funny. It had like an awesome A Tribe Called Quest song.
Yeah.
And I was like, the attitude was there. And I'm like, I laughed a couple times at this. And then like the Black April came and like it didn't even register. And then I went on Twitter. Right. Like, I wonder what people think. It's like Black April race swap. And then the YouTube channels were going crazy. Like, look at them being woke. And I'm like, X.
Close the window.
I'm really excited. Like I like darker Ninja Turtles, so like I'd be more excited for like a more darker interpretation of them. But like I'm totally cool with whatever this is gonna be. It seems to lean into the teenager aspect. Because Seth Rogen has said that something he thought was like less explored was the teenager aspect, and I'm like I really hope I like this movie. I mean, there's a real possibility that I won't love it, because maybe I'll watch and be like, oh, whatever.
Right.
Like, just give us some good stuff, because, like, I love the Ninja Turtles. Like, I still think the TMNT movie from, like, 2009 or whatever it was, the animated one, was, like, super underrated.
My number 2 most anticipated movie for the rest of 2023 is the movie that's playing about 1/3 of a kilometer that way, and it is the new Spider-Verse movie. I cannot wait. Just cannot wait, because again, this has been delayed at least twice as a victim of the late stages of the Panini, and the fact that now we're finally going to be able to watch it. And to your point, that you said, like, people are calling this like the best superhero movie of all time, and that obviously is a high bar to have to try to clear. But man, I loved that first one. That first one is so damn good. And like even like vaulted well over my high expectations for it. So I'm really hoping that the extra time, not time off, but the extra time only serves to the movie's benefit. Yeah, I don't know when I'm going to go see it. I'm assuming it's going to be pretty soon, but I cannot wait.
I didn't include this on my list because it's already out by the time I do it, so I didn't include it. But it probably would have taken the spot of, like, the Marvels. Mm-hmm. I didn't love the first one as much as a lot of people, but I also kind of feel like I did it a little dirty. So, like, I may actually eventually rewatch that. I don't know. But I am excited for this one. I mean, how can you not be? When, like, best superhero movie ever. It's like, I probably won't agree, but, like, I'll still probably really like it. So.
And I think one of the things that people have been saying about it, at least, is that it takes, like, a tertiary Spider-Man villain, but actually makes you, like, invested in a villain that most of you probably don't know.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, that's cool. That's great.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm excited. I'll watch it. So jump into my number 2. It's Mission Impossible. Dead Reckoning.
Dead Reckoning.
I'm not gonna add anything to this. It's just, the movie's. You get the feeling that it's gonna be amazing because it's 2-parter.
Yeah.
You gotta hope, right? Like, there's a reason they're doing 2 parts.
Totally.
Hopefully. Or it's gonna suck. It's gonna be like a slug. Why is this 2 parts?
Right. It's gonna be like this thin little whatever that they just, like, when they stretched Breaking Dawn into 2 parts for no
hopefully
reason.
It's more Infinity War Endgame.
Yes.
Or even like Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Something. More that than that.
All right, folks, my number 1 most anticipated movie for the rest of 2023 is Dune Part 2.
I should have known.
Which should come as no shock, obviously. I loved the first part of Dune so much. I love Denis Villeneuve. I love Timothée Chalamet. I love basically everybody that was a part of that first movie is like, oh my god, like everybody that's showing up in this is fantastic. So you might say I have very high hopes, and some might also say you only have one place to go from there. I'm hoping that that's not the case, obviously, with Dune Part 2. Right from the jump with Part 1, because I think we both said it. We looked at that movie as it's starting, and the title screen comes up, and it goes Part 1.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, Denny. Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's a matzo ball to put out there, my friend. Like, this might not work. Luckily, it did. And I can't wait to sit in that theater knowing, like, I'm about to watch the second part of this Dune movie. So, Dune Part 2, my number 1 most anticipated.
I'm obviously going to watch it. I'm, like, reasonably excited because I also like Villeneuve a lot. We differ a little bit on what Villeneuve we prefer.
Right.
You're like a Prisoners and apparently Dune guy, right? And I'm like a Sicario Blade Runner guy. Not that, like, we hate these movies, like the other movies, but, like, the thing was, like, I wasn't excited for the first Dune. I was excited for a new Villeneuve movie.
Yes.
And now that I've seen the first Dune and I wasn't absolutely in love with it, I'm like, it's kind of taken away. It's like, well, now I know that, like, Villeneuve can make a modern movie that I'm, like, not super in love with. Because he has made some of his older ones I thought, like, were 70s. It was actually the lowest. Dune 1 was actually the lowest rated movie of his that I like, tied for.
Wow.
Because I gave it a 7 out of 10, but I appreciated the directing and stuff. I hope this one's a lot better because I don't want to crap on a Villeneuve movie, even a little bit.
You hope that this is the Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, I really do. Like, I know I'm kind of alone in that because I know people really, really love the first one. It just wasn't. It wasn't for me as much as I had hoped.
Yeah.
Maybe this one will be. But for my number one, we'll have competing sci-fi movies at the top. Because I'm going Rebel Moon by my boy Zack Snyder.
Oh boy, this almost wound up being like high.
I don't know shit about this movie. I know it's coming out on Netflix, so I'll get to see it before the end of the year, for sure. That'll be like a day it comes out, I'm gonna watch it. I'm sure it'll be full of all the like dark, like metaphorical, like stuff that he's known for. He'll try to probably make it really big and say something, and people will criticize him for it, and then other people like me will love him for it. I'm sure it'll have slow-mo. It'll be the Zack Snyder that I know and hopefully that I love. Because something I realized a bunch of years ago was that, like, I'm a Snyder mark.
Yep.
And I never thought that for years either. Because I was like, well, I like Snyder a lot. There's some movies I really, really like. Then I looked at my ratings for his movies. Like, 9 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 9.5, 9.5. Like, I'm just like, oh, I'm a Snyder mark. And I didn't even realize it, except for 300. Hopefully his big sci-fi project that was originally an idea for Star Wars, I think.
Heavily inspired. Actually, I think almost became a Star Wars.
Yeah, so I hope that it's really good, and I hope Dune 2 is really good.
Yeah. Obviously heavily inspired by Star Wars and music by Junkie XL.
Ah,
there you go.
So much winning potential.
100%
here. Hopefully, the only thing that scares me is Netflix. Because sometimes you get these massive budgets, which I'm assuming this will have a fairly big budget.
One would have
streaming movie that ends up kind of just being like, eh. Like The Gray Man was like super expensive, and it was a fine.
It was like the most expensive thing Netflix ever made.
Yeah, and it was good, but like it wasn't worth however much it took to make, and I'm hoping that this doesn't fall victim to that.
I hope so too. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, the 2023 Justin and Tyler Mid-Year Movie Awards come to a close. We've given you our favorite movies so far this year, the stuff that we're looking forward to the most, a plethora of miscellaneous awards, our People Awards, and even some fun extra stuff, which is going to be coming up in the next video that you're going to see, the bonus video where we talk about the fans' choice, we put the spotlight on you, we talk about our favorite all-time movie awards moments. Tyler's got a really interesting data analysis in that video as well. That's kind of the bonus stuff that's going to be coming later. But, ladies and gentlemen, once again, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to join us, watch along, contribute as you have, not only to the fans' choice, but in the comment section. We love reading your comments. We love interacting with you, talking about movies. It's our favorite thing that we do all year. The mid-years might be done, but it's only going to be 7 more months until we are back here with the full 2023 Movie Awards, the 10th lineal Justin and Tyler Movie Awards. Cannot wait for it.
It's gonna be big too.
Big and just epic. Just like it's gonna be the Christopher Nolan movie of the movie awards. So, thank you again so much for watching. We will see you again in January for the end of year awards. Until then, happy watching and enjoy the movies.